ध्वनिर्वर्णापदम् वाक्यमित्यास्पदचतुष्टयम् यस्याः सूक्ष्मादिभेदे वाग्देवीं तामुपास्महे।
The Electronic Media Production and Research Center EMPRC of Madhya Pradesh Bhoj Open University presents an audio program on English literature. This audio program will be useful to the students of BA first year. This audio program is based on the second unit of second paper titled Literature in English from 1750 to 1900 AD. The title of audio program is Wordsworth and His Poetry. We have invited our subject expert and speaker, Dr. Rajni Pandey. Sound recorded, edited and presented by Amar Bahadur Yadav. Let's listen to the audio program Wordsworth and His Poetry.
Hello dear friends, I'm Rajni Pandey. I'm going to talk to you about Wordsworth and his poetry. In our previous sessions on William Blake and his famous poem, Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright, we learnt about his poetic art and his status in the history of English poetry. We also learnt how and why Blake is ranked among the most romantic and imaginative poets of the Romantic Age. In the present session, we will learn about the poetry of William Wordsworth, who is known to be the leader of the Romantic revival in English poetry. Well, what are the chief objectives of this session? They are to introduce our learners to Wordsworth and his poetry, to make them aware of the features of the Romantic revival, the factors which led to the changes that took place in the literary writings of that period, to assess and evaluate Wordsworth's poetry against the literary background of the age. Now, do you remember what events exactly led to the changes in the attitude of the writers of the Romantic age? Well, the main political and social event in bringing about the changes in people's mind was the French Revolution. Don't you remember we had talked about the French Revolution in our previous session? The French Revolution had a very deep and wide impact on the minds of almost all European people. People began to appreciate deeply the importance of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the three slogans which popularized the idea of democracy. The idea of monarchy. You know what is monarchy? Rule by one person, that is the king or the queen. So, the idea of monarchy, that is a country ruled by only one ruler, the king or the queen, did not recognize the role of the common man in society. The common people had no right, so as to say, in participating in the development of society. The result was that only the rich and the powerful people of society decided important matters. So, the literature of such times was also related to the ideas and thoughts of the age. So, the Romantic revival, in fact, was the outcome of the reaction against the materialistic and autocratic societies of the 18th century, which is also known as the neoclassical age or the age of prose and reason. Now, why is William Wordsworth called a romantic poet? What are the features and characteristics of the romantic poetry? And why is Wordsworth known to be one of the leading poets of the Romantic age? All these questions relate to Wordsworth's position and development as a poet of his age. In order to understand the basic concepts of his poetry, we have to learn about his background and major influences which helped him to develop as a writer and a poet. Let us first learn about his life and times. William Wordsworth was born at Cockermouth in Cumberland, England, on April 7, 1770. His father's name was John Wordsworth, and he was a lawyer. He had 5 children. Both of his parents died when Wordsworth was just a young boy. Wordsworth was a voracious reader. Voracious reader means he read a lot. He was very fond of reading. And during his education at grammar school and St. John's College, Cambridge, he studied the critics and writers of the 18th century. Somehow, he was not very happy with his studies at Cambridge. He and his younger sister Dorothy were very close to each other. Wordsworth by nature was very sensitive to the beauty of nature, and he often went on walking tours to places like France, Switzerland, and Scotland. During his walking tour in France in 1790 and 1791, he stayed there for some time and fell in love with Annette Welland, a surgeon's daughter. He also had a girl child from this relationship. His Lucy poems are dedicated to this child. Unfortunately, he could not stay in France for a very long time. The political atmosphere in France and the conflict between England and France forced him to return to his country. But during his stay there, his mind was charged by the ideals and motto of the French Revolution. Well, friends, so far we have learnt about the life and times of William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth's early life was spent in the rural areas of Cumberland. His closeness to nature and her charm enlightened his mind and developed his mind and art. We have seen how his close association with France and his humanism created the background of his huge output of poetry. Now let us look at his literary works, which show us the various stages of Wordsworth's development as a poet. His work, The Prelude, written in 1805, is an autobiographical record of his development as a child, an adult, and a worshipper of nature. The Prelude shows us his love for nature in the form of pantheism. Pantheism means worship of nature. Now, friends, the word pantheism means pan, the god of nature, and theism stands for belief or religion. This concept is not new for us. That is, we Indians also see God in the various forms of nature. We worship trees, the sun, the moon, water, and our earth. Wordsworth's philosophy was based on man's intimate relationship between man and nature. For him, nature is an eternal teacher. Nature for him is an eternal communicator of life's eternal truth. In 1790, he wrote descriptive sketches based on his experiences of tours in France and Switzerland. This period for him was a period of great mental conflict. He supported the French Revolution on principle, that is, he believed in the philosophy of freedom, equality, and brotherhood. But England had declared war against France. Therefore, Wordsworth, as an Englishman, felt his loyalty should be with his country. Moreover, the French Revolution took an ugly turn when Napoleon became the Emperor of France. Extremely disappointed, Wordsworth returned to England and settled down with his sister Dorothy at Alfoxden in Somerset. During this period, he became very close to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, an upcoming brilliant poet. This was a period of intense creativity for both poets. It was during this period that they produced the Lyrical Ballads in 1798, which became a milestone or landmark in the history of English Romanticism. The Lyrical Ballads contained poems that are the hallmark of Romantic poetry. Coleridge's famous ballad, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Wordsworth's well-known poems, The Idiot Boy, Tintern Abbey, were included in the Lyrical Ballads. In 1799, he wrote his famous Lucy poems. You know, Lucy poems have been dedicated to the child that he had from Annette Wallen. We have learnt about it previously. In the same year, Wordsworth and Dorothy moved to Townend in Grasmere in the Lake District. Now, this Lake District is a very beautiful place in England, and it has lovely landscapes and scenes. The natural scenes are very, very beautiful. In fact, his famous poem, The Daffodils, was written there. So for the rest of his life, he continued to live in Grasmere, where he composed some of his best poems. They are The Recluse, Book 1, The Brothers, Michael, Resolution and Independence, Intimations of Immortality from Recollections of Childhood. In 1802, he married Mary Hutchinson. Due to tragic deaths in the family, he shifted to Rydal Mount, a little farther away from Grasmere. By 1843, Wordsworth had achieved a worldwide reputation in the field of literature. He was made the Poet Laureate of England, the highest honor given to a poet for his contribution to English poetry, or his contribution to English literature. His last years were unhappy because of Dorothy's mental sickness. The poet died in 1850. Till now, our main discussion was about Wordsworth's personal life and his literary or poetic compositions. We have already discussed his background. Could you tell us what were the factors that brought about a great change in the literature, particularly the English poetry of that time? Well, friends, the French Revolution and the Romantic Revival were the two key events that became the driving force of Romantic poetry. We have already learned that Romanticism was a reaction against the poetry of the neoclassical age. The Romantic poet believes that the poet should be free to treat themes which he thinks are appropriate, that is, suitable to him and people. He also believes that poetry should be written in a language which all can follow and understand. According to the Romantic poet, poetry should familiarize people with the truths about ourselves. In his famous definition of poetry, Wordsworth says, "All good poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings." What does he mean by this definition? By the words powerful feelings, he means passion or intense emotion and shows us the true value of life. This passion is related to intense feelings felt by heart. So we see that Wordsworth regarded poetry as emotions recollected in tranquility. It means that poetry is born of strong and intense feelings or emotions which are spontaneous, that is, natural. These feelings the poet experiences in a calm and tranquil mood. After this, the feelings are created as poetry. In his famous poem, The Daffodils, Wordsworth recollects or remembers the scene of 1,000 daffodils in bloom. The scene fills him with calmness, tranquility, and serenity. And he says, "For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon the inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude." In another poem he says, "One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can." For Wordsworth, nature became the prime source, that is, the chief source of powerful feelings which helped him to cope with the difficulties of life. So friends, we have talked about Wordsworth's idea and concept of poetry. Now we shall discuss the main aspects of Wordsworth's poetry. The main aspects of Wordsworth's poetry are his concept of nature, as a poet of nature, as a poet of man, mysticism in his poetry, and Wordsworth as a moral teacher or moral value in his poetry, autobiographical elements in Wordsworth's poetry. So let us take up Wordsworth's concept of nature. Basically, Wordsworth was a lover of nature. Therefore, he is generally recognized as a poet of nature. Now, what is Wordsworth's concept of nature? Can you tell me? Okay, to Wordsworth, nature is alive. It is made alive by a soul which is present in all things, in all natures, in the stars of azure heaven and unenduring clouds, in flower and tree, in every pebbly stone. It circulates the soul of all the worlds. These lines explain his concept of nature. Nature does not live only in external form. It is governed by a living spirit. This spirit is divine in nature. This divine spirit guides us, nurtures us. Nurtures us means helps us to grow, helps us to live, strengthens our mind and heart. That is, makes us strong and courageous. Wordsworthian philosophy of nature is not strange to Indians. We also believe that God lives in nature. From nature we learn about life. The poet says, "Wisdom and spirit of the universe, thou soul that art the eternity of thought, and givest to forms and images a breath and everlasting motion." These lines explain the power of nature. Nature gives us wisdom. Nature shapes our thoughts. She is the guiding and living force of this universe. God in the form of nature can be seen in the light of the setting suns and the round ocean and the living air and the blue sky and in the mind of man. Wordsworth believes in the oneness of man and nature. Through the material forms of nature, man can experience the power of harmony and the deep power of joy. It is through his soul that the poet establishes spiritual contact with the living soul of nature. What is the power of nature? How does it influence man? Well, for Wordsworth, the first quality of nature is that it is the life of joy. All forms of nature, the rabbit, the deer, the flower, the waves, enjoy the air they breathe. The waves dance beside the daffodils. The second characteristic of nature is its quietude. Quietude means calmness, serenity, and tranquility. In other words, we can say that nature is untroubled. She has joy and ecstasy. Ecstasy means extreme joy. It can be likened to a Hindi word anand. So, she has joy and ecstasy in her life, and it is untroubled ecstasy. Totally undisturbed and untroubled anand. We human beings are disturbed, restless, worried, and anxious. We are troubled by cares, doubts. But nature is calm and at peace. The mountains stand calmly at peace. The stars shine quietly and patiently. The flowers bloom and spread fragrance. Though there are storms which often destroy the forms of nature, but at the center there is peace. Wordsworth calls it the central peace subsisting at the heart. This peace, that is the inner peace, gives us courage and strength. The third quality or aspect of nature is the continuous communication between man and nature. This is founded on love, which flows through all things and acts on each other. The whole world is interlinked. Every part, every element gives and receives. Dear friends, we all know that love is the strongest binding force of all beings. In nature we see that there is no caste and creed. All forms of nature, the clouds, trees, big and small, flowers, beautiful and ordinary, live together. There is no jealousy, no enmity. The earth, the sky and man communicate with each other. Wordsworth says, "There is a blessing in the air which seems a sense of joy to yield to the bare trees the mountains bear and grass in the green field. Love now and universal birth from heart it is stealing." This is the idea of life in nature that Wordsworth has expressed in his poetry. It fills the heart. It makes the commonest walk in the woods a delight, teaching society. It fills the world with life and energy and joy, says the famous critic Stopford Brooke. So Wordsworth's conception of nature developed as he grew up and matured. You know, friends, our mind as a child experiences the world differently. For example, as a young boy or girl, the sight of a waterfall or a hilly river thrills us. The physical form that attracts and excites us. But as we grow up and mature, our experiences and reactions are mellowed down. That is, instead of feeling that excitement and physical thrill, we react to nature in a more matured manner. We think about the mountains, sky, and rivers in a more spiritual mood. Similarly, Wordsworth's attitude to nature can be classified into 4 periods. They are the period of blood, that is, the physical reaction or experiences of boyhood. The period of the senses, that is, when man as a youth, that is young in manhood, experiences nature through his senses. And the third one is the period of the imagination, that is when man becomes mellowed down, he becomes mature, and He reacts with his creative imagination. The fourth period, that is, it is the period of the soul, when man totally merges all his experiences with his inner being. In his most appreciated poem, Tinton Abbey, these stages and classifications have been beautifully elaborated. We will deal with this aspect in more detail when we analyze and appreciate the poem. We have discussed Wordsworth as a poet of nature and his concept of nature. Now we shall concentrate on Wordsworth as a poet of man. Wordsworth's poetry is characterized by idealism and optimism. His love of nature led him to the love of man. According to Wordsworth, that man is the best who lives close to the heart of nature. Men who live in artificial surroundings, that is, urban areas, are miserable and troubled. The village folks or the people living in villages, mountains, are in constant contact with nature. They live in pure state. They are not corrupted by artificial atmosphere of the cities. The rural people are simple, spiritual, humble, and closer to God in the form of nature. For them, nature is the best teacher. In his well-known poem, "The world is too much with us," he says, "It is better to be a pagan than to profess Christianity." It means it is better to worship trees, stones, etc., than to be a Christian who is wicked at heart. He says, "Plain living and high thinking are no more. The homely beauty of the good old cause is gone. Our peace, our fearful innocence, and pure religion, breathing household laws." In brief, it means that simplicity and high spiritual thoughts no longer influence man. The pure and innocent attitude of people, simple discipline, and morality of all households is gone. Wordsworth here refers to the materialistic tendencies of the modern man. The main subjects of Wordsworth's poetry are ordinary, simple people. He does not write about kings, queens, and statesmen. His subjects are shepherds like Michael, who is simple, sincere, and dignified. Other subjects are leech gatherers, gypsies, or lonely reapers in the field. Wordsworth shows that peasants or farmers and shepherds who live close to nature are simple and unsophisticated. He believes that true peace and harmony can be achieved only when one lives in quiet communion with nature. This attitude was formed by the Republican thought, which was the founding principle of the French Revolution. Liberty, equality, and fraternity are the basic tenets which also form the basic theme of Wordsworth's poetry. For him, the ideal role model is nature where true democracy prevails. Well, students, so far we have talked about Wordsworth as a poet of nature, as a poet of man. We've discussed how the prime principle of democracy governs nature and all her living and non-living beings. If man maintains deep communion with nature, he shall be free from the shackles of this artificial world. Another aspect that characterizes Wordsworth's poetry is his mysticism. Now, what do we understand by the word mysticism? The word mysticism means an attitude of mind founded upon an instinctive or experienced conviction of unity, of oneness, of likeness in all things. Our wonderful scripture, the Gita, explains it very well. It says, true knowledge consists in this, to see one undivided, changeless life in all things, to see the one inseparable in the separate. It means that all forms of life represent that one life, Para Brahma. While the material world is forever changing, the divine is changeless. Shelley has defined it beautifully in these lines: the one remains, the many change and pass. Wordsworth emphasizes the unity between man and God. It is this knowledge which is not based on the materialistic knowledge that is known as mysticism. Wordsworth's famous poem, Ode on the Intimations of Immortality, strongly depicts the aspect of mysticism in his poetry. In Tintin Abbey also, we experience the mystic reflections of the poet. What is the moral value of Wordsworth's poetry? Wordsworth has often been described as a teacher, as a moralist. What do you think about it? All right, let us see how his poetry teaches us moral values. Wordsworth's poetry is not just the beautiful description of nature's beauty. His poetry goes beyond the material beauty or the external beauty of the world or earth. Wordsworth, as a great teacher, idealizes and glorifies the vast universe around us. Unlike Shakespeare's richness and Milton's sublimity, Wordsworth had this extraordinary skill of leading people by bringing the infinite into commonplace, into inner moods of settled peace, to give us quiet strength and purpose. It is this great ability in Wordsworth to spiritualize the simplest of concepts into eternal thought. For example, he says, "And 'tis my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes, and hark, how blithe the throstle sings. He too is no mean preacher. Come forth into the life of things, let nature be your teacher." The fundamental teaching of Wordsworth is that man can ennoble himself by living in harmony with nature. Nature is a great teacher, a great healer, and a great giver of joy and hope. In his famous poem, Ode to Duty, he elaborates upon the guiding principle of morality. He says, "Serene will be our days, and bright, and happy will our nature be, when love is an unerring light, and joy its own security." He says, right to freedom also includes right to duty. If one performs one's duty with faith and loyalty, the world will be a place of peace and happiness. Dear friends, we have discussed at length Wordsworth's life, his development as a poet, and his basic poetic themes and philosophy. Wordsworth's great contribution to English poetry lies in enriching the art of poetry with simplicity, richness of thought, humanism, naturalness, sympathy, and calmness. His themes and style reflect his greatness, that is, truth and beauty are merged in his poetry. So friends, I hope you have enjoyed the session. Now here are some important questions that can be asked in the examination. You can note them down if you want to. That is, the first question is, discuss the formative influences of Wordsworth's poetry. The second question is, briefly illustrate how the French Revolution influenced Wordsworth's poetry and philosophy of life. The third question is, write a short essay on Wordsworth as a poet of nature. The fourth question is, discuss Wordsworth's concept of nature. Now, all these questions have been discussed in this session, and there are various parts in the lecture which refer to Wordsworth as a poet of nature, Wordsworth's concept of nature, Wordsworth as a teacher, Wordsworth as the poet of man. All these points will be available in the lecture. And hope you'll study sincerely and do well in the exam. All the best. Thank you and bye.
You were just listening an audio program, Wordsworth and His Poetry. Subject expert and speaker was Dr. Rajni Pandey. Announcer was Vinita Jain. This audio program was recorded, edited and presented by Amar Bahadur Yadav. This program was produced by the Electronic Media Production and Research Center, EMPRC of Madhya Pradesh Bhoj Open University.